And with this story, this is going to be kind of like a final conclusion. And I'm getting this story from people.com. So thank you for the article. And a lot of guys have been following this story. So if you guys would make sure and include us in that when you check out our content, make sure and share this video as well. But I got to say, with us just coming off of Mother's Day, it makes you wonder, because I know so many good mothers out there. A lot of you guys feel like how I feel. There are a lot of amazing mothers out there that will give their last breath to their kids and do anything that they can to raise them and so they can grow up and become something great. Then you have the people that just are the exact opposite of that, right? You know, just people that are not good people. But before I get into too much of giving my opinion, I don't want to go too crazy because some people ain't never seen my content before. So let me give you a disclaimer first. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I do have to give that disclaimer every time just to make sure that we are good to go. So let me go ahead and put this picture up on the screen. So the crackhead, I'm sorry, the stupid bitch, I'm sorry. I mean, the Freddy Krueger mother-looking individual that you guys see right here on my screen. That woman, her name is Lori Vallow, V-A-L-L-O-W. Hope I said that correctly. Daybell, D-A-Y-B-E-L. That person, individual, has been found guilty. Why? Of murdering her 2 children and conspiring to murder her 5th husband's first wife. Let's back that up just for a second. Her 5th husband's first wife. That is a conundrum in itself. 5th husband. First of all, they had to have known something was wrong with her. Maybe people kept divorcing her because they figured out that she was crazy and it ended up getting to this point. I don't understand how somebody this dumb can have that many husbands. And it almost have to make you think, like, were those men that dumb too? Maybe they were good people. Maybe they didn't know no better. Maybe she just snapped one day, but to be sitting there. Yeah, 5th husband. Yeah, y'all heard that right. 5. Cinco. Like Cinco de Mayo. 5 husbands. And this was her in the back of the police car smiling. Like that's like her send-off photo right there. If y'all ever want to see the face of evil, you are literally looking at it on my screen right there. She was charged with murdering and conspiring to murder her 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and her daughter, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, and conspiring to murder Tammy Daybell, who was her 5th husband's first wife. You just can't make a narrative like that up. I don't know, man. Look, let's keep going because it's going to get crazy. I hope y'all are ready. Tammy, 49 years old, was married to Lori's 5th husband, Chad Daybell, for nearly 30 years before her death. All of the murders took place in 2019. In addition to the murder and conspiracy charges, Lori was also charged and found guilty of grand theft. Big picture popped up. Let me try to close this. There we go. While the verdict was read, Lori displayed no visible emotion. So I think you guys can see that in some of these pictures. I'll try to post them. This is pretty much the expression that she had. Some of you guys have actually been following this for a while. And thank you guys so much for joining the channel membership. I see you in there. If y'all have followed this and y'all have seen the live streams, those live stream court things, they're usually like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. Like they can be long. And I'm just like, I'd rather kind of catch it at the conclusion. But most of the time she sits there with this dumbfounded looking face right there. Like, I don't know why the Lord would give her a face like that so she can look just as slower than a bottle of molasses. But nonetheless, that's just what it is. She looked at the clerk reading the verdict and looked down at times. Her hands were clasped in the front of her. She wore a black jacket, a black top, and black pants. After the verdict was delivered, she calmly walked out of the courtroom without saying anything to her attorneys. Like, she just ain't nothing going on at all. The trial lasted almost 7 weeks and answered numerous questions in relation to the untimely deaths of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, who was her 5th husband's first wife. Try to remember that. That's incredible. During opening statements, Fremont County Prosecuting Attorney Lindsay Blake revealed that Tammy's cause of death was asphyxiation. Choked. Tammy died at the hands of another, Blake said. On October 19th of 2019, weeks after JJ and Tylee disappeared, Chad Daybell reported Tammy's death, saying she had gone to bed with a cough and didn't wake up. The manner of death was initially ruled as natural causes, which is wild because you would think that they would get this correct. Initially, they thought it was natural causes and no autopsy was done. However, her death was later deemed suspicious and her body was exhumed for an autopsy to be conducted. Let me ask you guys this. I get that if you think it's something you don't want to go above and beyond the call of duty, I get that. But I would just think that shouldn't you want like an official cause of death? Like you should want that to be accurate as hell, right? Like would any of y'all want y'all loved ones, your mom, your cousin, your auntie to pass away and you're just like, yeah, we think she died of natural causes, but we don't really know. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig them up out the ground and now we're going to make sure rather than just making sure and then you don't have to go through all that bullshit of exhuming their body. Like that just seems like a disgusting process to have to go through. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dumb. But they exhumed her body for an autopsy. On November the 5th of that same year, Lori Ann Chad, an author who wrote about doomsday scenarios, married in Hawaii. Later in the trial, and nearly 3 years after siblings JJ and Tylee were found buried on Chad's Idaho property. Found buried. JJ's cause of death was also revealed to be asphyxiation. Dr. Garth Warren, a forensic pathologist, said JJ was asphyxiated. Now, I'm not going to be able to keep saying that word. I'm sorry. Like, I went to college, but not real great with these $5 words. JJ was asphyxiated with a plastic bag and duct tape over his mouth, according to East Idaho News. Tylee's manner of death was homicide, but her cause of death remained undetermined, according to the outlets. Her autopsy took several days because her remains were not found intact. Crazy. This autopsy was different, Warren said. The vast majority of the time when I perform an autopsy, I get the entire body and there's a process to go through. Tylee's was a different case. Her remains were received in 3 separate sealed bags. Want y'all to look at that face and remember what I just said. Think about the angels that you guys see on my screen right here. These kids, these young teenagers, could not speak for themselves. They couldn't defend themselves against their mother. Like how could they possibly? The caretaker, the person that they live with, turned out to be the most horrid person. Like, how do we even get to this point? Like, maybe your life is bad and maybe you feel like there's nothing else for you to live for. But I don't understand why people can't just leave the kids alone. I will never understand that. That's why we'll always be advocates for children first. But let's keep going. During the trial, numerous witnesses took the stand, including Lori's surviving son, Kobe Ryan, and her sister, Summer Cox Shiflett. Both Kobe and Summer cried as they spoke about their siblings. Kobe described his mother, saying that for much of his life, she protected her children and supported him. He also said that throughout his childhood, he loved Lori and didn't think that she could hurt someone until she met Chad. My mom has spent her whole life protecting us as kids, Kobe said on the stand. After she met Chad Daybell, she changed. Chad, who was 54 years old, is charged in connection with the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, but he'll be tried in a separate trial. And I don't know if we'll really follow up because this is the main person that we've been talking about most of this time. But maybe we will. Maybe we'll talk about Chad because he had something to do with this also. And so far, he's pled not guilty. Lori will be sentenced at a later time, but I can almost guarantee you guys she's probably going to end up getting a life sentence with no parole. After the verdict, prosecutors Rob Wood and Lindsay Blake released a statement saying that they are pleased with the jury's verdict and we want to thank them as well as the alternates for their service over the last 6 weeks during the trial. Given the pending case against the co-defendant Chad Daybell, we are unable to conduct any additional interviews or discuss further details. So let's skip that. We understand that. The statement added, we also want to express sincere appreciation to the members of law enforcement and the community who tirelessly work together to hold Lori Vallow Daybell accountable. Now, if you guys ever suspect child abuse, call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 800-4-A-CHILD or 800-422-4453 or childhelp.org. Let me give you guys the fair usage. I'm going to look at a couple of these news videos, but some of them are a little long, so we're going to skip through it just a little bit. Here we go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Also, and if you guys can help spread the news of this video, please hit that thumbs up. We want to have one thumb up for everybody watching. Please just hit that thumbs up. Only takes a second to share this video, okay? Here we go.
Lori Vallow Daybell is now being held in the Madison County Jail in eastern Idaho tonight, awaiting sentencing. A jury in Ada County found her guilty on all counts Friday afternoon. Those counts are murder and conspiracy to commit murder, as well as grand theft and the deaths of her two kids, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and her husband's late wife, Tammy Daybell. The judge said Vallow will be sentenced within 3 months from now. She could face up to life in prison. News Channel 7's Shira Matsuzawa talked to J.J.'s grandparents, Tylee's aunt, and Lori Vallow's uncle about the outcome of the trial.
For the families of J.J., Tylee, and Tammy, Friday's guilty verdict was more than 3 years of waiting, prayers, and tears.
Thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all.
JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, talked with media moments after the verdict came down.
We are elated with this.
I want to personally hug every one of those jurors.
While the Woodcocks were in court when that verdict was read, many relatives were also watching from across the country. Family members like Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing.
You know, I was just absolutely over the moon.
Annie was in court the first couple of weeks of the trial and sat just feet away from Lori.
I was surprised by how I felt when I saw her. Like, I was expecting more rage and just like, how dare you, but she looked like an animal caught in a trap. I walked away with the realization she also took herself down. She lived a charmed, privileged life, and she threw it all away.
Lori's uncle, Rex Connor, had a similar experience when he attended the trial on 2 separate occasions.
You make eye contact with Lolo, and you have that faint smile, well, we knew the person that preceded you. When you make eye contact, I don't feel like we know this person. I don't speak with Lori, but my sister Janice, her mother, does every week. And, when I'm talking with Janice, she just relays Lori is still in her delusion.
Do you have a message for Lori?
I've thought through, like, if there's anything I would want to say to her, it would fall on deaf ears. She's a psychopath. She has no concern whatsoever about the pain and suffering she's caused other people.
And it's that pain that makes the guilty verdict they've been waiting for still wrapped in sadness, because it doesn't bring the kids back.
It's the most bittersweet you can imagine. Just the sadness, but the relief from all this is I guess, a liberating feeling. I do believe since it's Mother's Day weekend, this is what you call poetic justice.
We are so grateful that for everyone that has come in contact with this story. And here's why. You can think of all of the news stories, all of the situations in the world that we see reported, and aren't most of them divisive? There are millions of people now that are aware of it, that are following it, that care about it, and we're all on the same side.
The Idaho mom at the center of a so-called Doomsday plot that led to murder is scheduled to be sentenced later this year. That mother, you've heard the name before, Lori Vallow Daybell, was convicted on Friday of killing her two youngest children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, and conspiring to kill the first wife of her husband, Chad Daybell. Chris Van Cleve now has reaction to the verdict.
Answer: guilty.
An Idaho jury of 7 men and 5 women found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty on all charges, including the first-degree murders of her 2 youngest children.
Answer: guilty.
While Vallow Daybell offered no visible reaction as the verdicts were read,
We are elated with this.
family members, including 7-year-old JJ's grandparents, reacted with emotion.
JJ, I love you.
I'm so relieved that justice was served.
Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing.
But then there are those, just those quiet moments of realizing, it doesn't bring the victims back.
During the 5-week trial, the prosecution argued Vallow Daybell's motives were money, power, and sex.
Tylee, JJ, and Tammy can't tell us what happened, but their bodies do.
Prosecutors called nearly 60 witnesses. The defense rested without calling a single one, but painted her as a victim of her husband, Chad, a Doomsday cult leader.
She's following Chad. She thinks Chad is following Jesus.
And here's my thing about that, and that's part of where we have to start getting over this accountability, if y'all don't mind me saying. Like, I think that this woman should get life in prison for the role that she played. Don't make it seem like, oh, but she was following a man. Here's my whole thing. Here's my whole thing. This is what I get upset about in our world, and maybe some of you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from. Shout out to the women. And I think we get a lot of women to listen. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong about this. Anybody who's listening right now, please hit that thumbs up. Share this video. Tell me if I'm wrong about what I'm saying. Our society tells us that they want us to treat women the same, treat women equal, give them equal opportunities, give them equal rights, correct? And I agree with all of that. But why is it that it seems like when it comes to court, when it comes to being held accountable, just like a man would, now all of a sudden, well, let's check on her mental status. Now, maybe she was being led. Maybe the man forced her to do it. Maybe he coerced her. Maybe she just didn't know any better, right? You should look at this on the merits of what she did, the fact that she is a grown, lawful adult in the United States of America, and if she does something that caused the death of her kids or anybody else, then she should be held accountable on that alone. I don't care what her influences are, right? I don't care if Jesus or the devil influenced her. You could always blame it on an influence. You could blame it on the sunshine. You could blame it on the moonlight. You could blame it on the good times. Hell, you could even blame it on the boogie. Sorry. Y'all know I'm an old school DJ. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be quoting Michael Jackson lyrics. I'm sorry. But I just think that's really weird. The fact that we're going to say, give them all these equal things. We're going to treat them all the same until it comes to certain things. Like, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to make them do equal work until it comes to something that's too heavy or too dangerous, or, you know what I'm saying? We're going to give them equal rights until they get up in front of a judge, and now all of a sudden, you know what? We need to have more compassion because she's a female. And I think that I have a lot of good women out there. Let me say that again. I think I have a lot of good women out there, especially in my chat, that believe, you know what? That's bullshit. And we want to be treated equal, and we stand on our own 2 feet. Right, ladies? Tell me if I'm right or wrong about that. Tell me I got some ladies out there in the chat that'll listen to the sound of my voice that believe that I stand on my own 2 feet and I don't need anybody making excuses for my choices. That's real empowerment. Thank you. That's real empowerment.
But he's not.
A source close to the trial says Vallow Daybell was unhappy her lawyers tried to place blame for the murders on her husband, who will be tried separately.
And while Lori can only face up to life in prison, Chad Daybell, if convicted, he could get the death penalty.
Her husband Chad's lawyers were there, were listening to her defense attorneys blaming him for all of the criminal misconduct. That certainly will be part of his trial.
Chad Daybell has pleaded not guilty. His wife will face sentencing in the coming months. For CBS Mornings, I'm Chris Van.
This part is quite a bit long. This is about 15 minutes long. I don't know that y'all want to sit through this much of it. This is just basically the sentencing. I thought this was important because you could hear more of the judge, but I would just say go to CBS's YouTube channel, watch it there. It's the one that's like 14 minutes, I believe. So I won't make you guys watch the whole portion of that. But let me show you a little bit of a shorter version here in the news.
Give us back our children. We're not ending this. This is not the end of this. And I'm going to say right now what I'm going to say in 3 months. Why, Lori? Why, Lori? Why?
An emotional moment for the grandfather of JJ, who was killed, and Lori Vallow has been convicted of her murder. The so-called Doomsday mom convicted on those 2 murders, JJ and Tylee, and she will soon face sentencing in the case. She could spend the rest of her life behind bars. That's what's on the table. A jury of 7 men, 5 women found her guilty on all of those charges Friday: first-degree murder, also conspiracy and grand theft in the deaths of Tylee, who was 16 years old, and JJ, who was 7 in 2019. Jurors also found that Lori conspired to murder Tammy Daybell, her husband Chad Daybell's first wife. I want to thank trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. He's been following this since the very beginning. It's not over. This was a major, major step in the guilty verdict from this jury, but guilty on all charges. First of all, Brian, just your thoughts as you watched.
You know what? I was reading the chat, and Stacy actually said exactly what I was thinking. She said she didn't have compassion for the kid, so why have compassion for her? That's actually what I'm going to touch on right after this video ends. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Because for those 2 other living children, I want y'all to think about that. Whenever the judge or the jurors make a conviction on her and make a conviction on her husband, think about those kids and how do you explain that to them why you would give this broad a softer sentence because she was being led when she's just as guilty in the participation of the deaths of 3 people. Give her a softer sentence, give her more leeway than this man who led it. Why? Like, I think that weakens the case of presenting women as strong because I believe that they are equal, right? And I think in order for society to be strong, you have to get rid of the weak people. People who would hurt kids, innocent, defenseless kids, should not be in our society. Everybody agree to that? That's what I'm talking about. Anybody who can participate in the murder and abuse of children who we're supposed to be protecting as the next generation got to get the hell out of here.
This trial.
Yeah. Hey, Marnie, belated Happy Mother's Day, by the way. I hope you had a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you know, you had me on right after opening statement in the Lori Vallow case, and I felt like I was on an island because I told you that the only real plausible defense she had in that case was what's called diminished capacity, which was she would arguably have to admit that, look, yes, I was involved in these murders, but because of my mental health issue, because of my involvement in this cult, that I didn't have the requisite intent to commit these murders. And had she argued that, she might have gotten away with a second-degree murder, and she might have walked out of prison. She didn't have that defense. And by the way, Marnie, her defense was pathetic in this case. She didn't call an expert pathologist to try to attack the cause of death. She didn't, for example, call a forensic expert to test the duct tape to possibly attack the mechanism in which her hair was found on that duct tape. That would have been a critical witness for her to bring in. And then last, she didn't even bring in a forensic psychologist to possibly review the records. Remember, she was in a mental hospital 8 months. She could have called a psychologist on the stand to say, look, I've reviewed all these records. I've seen her myself, and she is suffering from PTSD. She's really distressed about having lost her kids. There was none of that at trial. She came off like a cold, callous murderer.
Right. And why was that? I mean, is that on her that she directed her defense not to do those things? Or is it the blame lays with her defense that they screwed this up and did not present a case, had no strategy at all? I mean, will we know?
Yeah, Marnie, great question. This absolutely falls on the hands of the trial lawyers and the defense team. I mean, I represented years ago Dalia DiPolito. I don't know if you remember that case in Florida. She was caught on, a videotape saying she's 5,000% sure she wanted to kill her husband. And I was able to get a hung jury in the retrial in that case. Why? Because I directed the defense of that case. I decided to go after the police department for what's called objective entrapment. I called police officers on the stand to cross-examine them. I mean, defense lawyers need to navigate a case, especially in this instance where this woman is obviously deranged, Marnie. Why would you ever rely on anything she's saying in terms of her defense? I mean, shame on her defense lawyers.
Right. But the prosecution did lay out a pretty good case. So the defense certainly could have done more, but the prosecution's evidence, even though circumstantial, was really compelling as we watch this whole trial, right? So they have to be given some credit for a conviction.
Oh, yeah, Marnie, I'm not taking anything away from the prosecution. They put on a great case. And they, for example, they put on a great case of motive as well, right? The social.
To be honest with y'all, this man sounds like he's trying to promote himself, patting himself on the back. That's what it sounds like to me. This sounds like a selfless plug to me. I'm just saying.
Security benefits, the fraud there, the two of them getting married, they wanting to be empty nesters. Remember all that testimony? No, I think the prosecution did a fantastic job. And that's why it proves my point that the defense lawyers had to put on something to show she's got a heart and soul, put on something that maybe challenges that there was bad testing on that hair on the duct tape, which you and I talked about, which was devastating to her defense. She didn't even put up a fight, and she got what she deserved then.
All right. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation.
Straight up, and thank y'all for that video. But let me say this. Let me say this, and here's how I surmise all of this. Let me see if I can get back to her picture. That's actually both of them, but I'm gonna just skip to just her picture. Let me say this. If you can be so dumb that you can be led to commit murder, then I think for that alone, the fact that you are a parent, an adult in a household, that you can be that damn dumb, whether he's a pastor, I don't care. I don't care if he was the Holy Ghost himself living in your house. If you could be that dumb to be led to murder people, then I think you deserve life in prison just for being that stupid. So whenever the sentencing is, I think it's going to be here in the next few months. I think it's in less than 90 days, I think is what they're looking at. I forgot. I think it's like July or something like that. Life in prison is all I want to hear, with no possibility of return. I don't see why you would ever want somebody back like that in society. Here's the other part of it. For the part that man played for manipulating the situation or whatever he did or whatever he knew that was wrong that caused the death of at least these 3 people, his ass needs to go to jail for life with no possibility of return too. Like, who's going to miss them? I don't think anybody's going to miss them, right? There's less people to be, for them to be getting married, for her to be married 5 times. Just, you got to get bad apples. You got to get bad seeds out of your crops. That's all I'm saying. But if you guys have a comment about this, if you feel like I said something that was inaccurate, or if you need to make a correction, or if it's something I missed, we got the comment section. Please let me know. I've always got my email right here, theafcmatters@gmail.com. Please hit that thumbs up, but share with me if there's something that I have said that's factually inaccurate. I know sometimes I say something that don't really sit well with people's sensibilities. That's completely different. That's my opinion, but you already know that's what you're coming here for. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you.